Alright guys, welcome to another trade recap video. I'm going to recap the two trades I took today to make about $50,000, which was about $2,500 per account, came out to about 50K total, and let's get right into it. So I'm going to start off here on the daily time frame, and I want to point out this low to you guys because this is the most important low on this chart that you guys will see. Now, in my weekly outlook that I did for my free Discord, I mentioned this being the draw for the week. Before this Tuesday candle even opened up, I was talking about this being the draw for the week. That's exactly where price headed, and we took it out before the week really even began. We took this out on Tuesday. So the fact that SMT was put in down here with ES made me obviously a little bit bullish here from this wick and the SMT. So right off the bat, I'm immediately looking for longs going into the remainder of the week. I was looking for potentially a Tuesday low of the week weekly profile. Obviously, it is NFP week, so we have to take things with a grain of salt, but this closure definitely made me very bullish for the remainder of the week. Now here we are on a 4-hour time frame, and the second thing that made me have a bullish bias was this daily candle. Now this is the 6 p.m. closure of the 4-hour candle, right? And you guys can clearly see this 4-hour and this daily did not manipulate anywhere to the upside at all, with the exception of the sweep of the previous day high. There was no manipulation into a higher time frame PDRA at all. Nothing was here for us to manipulate into. So we assume that the move lower here is the manipulation leg based on this closure here as well, right? So we're expecting a retracement and then another leg higher that makes a new high. Now, one of the most important factors here for this specific trade that I'll show you guys was this 4-hour fair value gap. Now, I had this trade marked out before the 4-hour fair value gap even opened up. You guys can watch the entire live stream and see exactly what I thought. But I was watching this fair value gap before it even opened up. I knew we would place some sort of a fair value gap here. And the most important thing in my trades really is internal SMT. And in here, obviously, it's going to be a little difficult for internal SMT to form because of the pure fact that both ES and NQ pushed into this 4-hour fair value gap, right? However, the important thing to note here on ES is we have this balanced price range that ES pushed into. So not only did ES push into the 4-hour fair value gap, but we have a balanced price range that ES pushed into, and that same balanced price range does not exist here on NQ at all. So therefore, we have internal SMT. So that was one of the most important things, like I said, for my trade, and we did end up getting that. Now, another thing I really stress is a higher time frame PDRA sponsoring the high or low of day move. Anytime you're looking at the overnight session, whether that's London, whether that's Asia, whatever it might be, you want to see a higher time frame fair value gap that you can use to frame a high or low of day narrative, right? So in this case here, we have this 4-hour fair value gap that I can use for a low of day narrative to then, obviously make another new high and push price higher. But there has to be a fair value gap from an hourly or a 4-hour or higher time frame that is present that you can use for the daily PO3, which would put in the low and sponsor the move into new high. So that was the last thing that I was looking for, and that is essentially how we framed the narrative and the bias behind this trade. Now let's get into the actual entry itself. Now, as far as the actual entry, I always like stacking multiple PDRAs, and I use a little bit of discretion to find exactly where I'm going to enter my trade. So I'm going to mark out this 4-hour fair value gap here, so we have this when we go into the lower time frames. Now, not only do we have a 4-hour gap here, but you guys can also see we have a 1-hour fair value gap here as well. If we drop down into the 15-minute, you guys will see we also have a 15-minute gap here as well. 5-minute, same story. This area lines up with multiple different PDRAs at this point. The last thing that I want to do is I want to drop down to a 1-minute because that's where we get the most precise entries. And do we have a fair value gap in this area? And it seems like we do, which is right here. So where exactly is my trade going to be taken? Now, because this area with the larger fair value gap, the 4-hour gap, has a lot of gaps in this area, this is going to be the best place to take a trade. Now, where exactly in this area am I going to place a trade? Like I said, we use the lower time frames for precise entries. So what level is this 1-minute fair value gap at? This is 23,304. Now, obviously, if I'm looking for an entry long, I'm not going to place a limit at 304 because that's going to make an equal low here with the fair value gap. I want to go a little bit lower so that I can get an actual close to a bottom tick and then catch the entirety of this move. So instead of placing my limit here at 304, I just went slightly lower, placed it at 302.5, which was still close enough to the entry of this fair value gap and could potentially give me that bottom tick. I always use 10-point stops across the majority of my trades, so this was a 10-point stop loss trade. And you guys can see here, 302.5 ended up being the low of day as expected. I sold this trade a little bit before the market actually opened. This is at 825, and I got out of that right there. Now, as far as the TP goes, a lot of people thought that I would just target this high, but it's very simple. If we reach from here into this high, that's not going to just stop right there, right? If the daily candle flips fully red to green, that does not mean it's just going to randomly stop here. It's probably going to continue delivering higher, which is what we discussed earlier from the higher time frames. We have to go make a new high on the higher time frames. So that's exactly what ends up happening. We push higher and higher and higher and make new highs on the higher time frames. Now, the second trade that I took was more so just continuation of this trade because this had not hit my pre-identified draw on liquidity, which happened to be the previous day high that you guys see right here. So I was looking for a price to still continue higher into the previous day high. So obviously I'm looking to play the 9:30 a.m. Judas swing at the 9:30 open. Now again, similar story to the previous move that we got right here out of the 4-hour gap. We want to make sure that there's multiple PD arrays that align in this area, and we also want to make sure that they are higher time frame PD arrays because that's the higher probability move. We want to look for a higher time frame for value gap, higher time frame PD array of some sort to sponsor the move higher. By the way, if you're confused about what a Judas swing is, I'll quickly explain it. It's literally just the 9:30 a.m. manipulation. So 9:30 a.m. when market opens, if you have a predetermined direction, let's say you want market to go higher, it's not just going to consolidate like this and then go higher right away, right? Usually what it'll do is it'll consolidate, then it'll go lower, and then it'll go higher. And this move here is known as the Judas swing, right? This move, the manipulation leg, is known as the Judas swing. Now, when I'm looking for a Judas swing or really any PD array, I'm not looking for mitigated PD arrays. So in this case, this 15-minute fair value gap here is a mitigated PD array because it delivered new highs, right? You guys can see we delivered new highs here from this fair value gap. So this is not something that I would use anymore, and I'd be looking for a fresh PD array, which we see right here. Now this is only the 15-minute, so we got to go to the higher time frames. Let's see what we see here. And on the 4-hour, we have an order block, and on the 1-hour, we have the same exact PD array. So we know that this is a good area to place limits. Now, because this fair value gap is really, really small, I already wasn't risking much. So my limit was literally just the start of the fair value gap. 70.25 was my limit. And with a 10-point stop, that gives me a stop loss at 60.25, which makes it directly underneath this fair value gap. My target was the 4-hour highs for this trade, so that's what we'll target. And we literally just sit here and wait for 9:30 a.m. to open, manipulate lower into this fair value gap, and then give us the move higher. So the 9:30 opens up right here. We make this move lower, and we're just short of the fair value gap. Now, a lot of people would look at this and they would try chasing this move, thinking that their trade got missed and they're not going to be able to get an entry here. However, all this is engineered liquidity. The market is literally trying to get people to long here, right? The algorithm wants people to long so that they can place their stop losses at these lows. The market can later come down, take the lows, go into the PD array, and then make the move higher, right? So we are patiently sitting here and waiting for this level to get hit. The next candle tags us into this trade, and the following candle goes and delivers straight to the TP. Obviously, it continued a little bit higher, as you guys can see, but that's where we exited this trade out, and these two combined made me a whopping $50,000 across all 20 accounts. Now, I get a lot of questions. How do you make $50,000 across 20 accounts? I use Apex Trader Funding. It's the only firm that allows you to stack 20 accounts or over 5 accounts at all. It's the only firm. So if you guys use code KEY, K-E-Y, that's a great way to support me, and you can use Apex Trader Funding. buy 10, 20 accounts, however many you'd like, stack them up, and make some insane profits.